Hello and welcome to the programme. A 5-day spring session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe has kicked off in Strasbourg. The topics to be discussed include promoting parliaments free of sexism and the implications for human rights of social media. The Assembly will also take a stand on the creation of a new EU mechanism on democracy, the rule of law and fundamental rights. Now, meanwhile, German diplomats are negotiating with representatives of other states about the return of the Russian delegation to peace without sanctions. Now, I'm pleased to say, to discuss this, we welcome to our studio Taras Kachka, an advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Hello, thank you so much for coming to our studio today.
Hello.
So let's talk about that then. I mean, they're going to be talking about a lot at pace over the next couple of days, which I'm sure will be very exciting. But it'd be interesting to focus on this particular proposal by the German MPs to perhaps try and get Russia back. So how likely do you think this is, given the resistance from Ukrainian and other representative states there? And what sort of process is there involved in this?
First of all, this is the probability is a little bit different from the core interest on pursuing this decision on finding a solution, how to allow Russian MPs to participate in peace without any consequences of Russian aggression against Ukraine. Now they are limited in their rights. They can be present there, but they cannot speak, they cannot vote, so they are limited in their rights. And that's why Russia is blackmailing Europe and Europe in large. And what we have two or three implications here. So first is that, first of all, it is clear that no one will vote for, let's say, forgiving Russia all its sins, all its misdemeanor, all its violent behavior against Ukraine. And not only Ukraine, because we should remember that Russia is quite aggressive against other European states as well, invading part of Georgia, Moldova, and also absolutely meddling with internal and domestic issues throughout Europe. So it is clear that no one will forgive Russia all this misbehavior. That's why there is an idea of applying very, let's say, European-style, neutral decision on excluding a possibility of peace to limit the rights of the national delegations there. That's the mere possibility of limiting these rights will be eliminated.
So it's like doing it the other way around.
Yeah, so
you're
just canceling the rule. If you don't want to follow the rules, you just can cancel these rules. Previously, it was clear division between European civilized manner of doing things and non-civilized way of doing things, that in civilized way you are playing by rules, not playing with rules. Here we see this actual play with rules promoted by some pro-Russian MPs. And this is once again extremely important because all European parliaments are democratic parliaments. They represent all range of views in societies. That's why there are always parties, usually marginal parties, somewhere in some states with more representations, which are friendly, also to different level friendly to Russia. That's why there are voices in favor of Russia. They always exist because this is a democracy. But the problem here is that, first of all, that Russia is, in reality, Russia is panicking. That's why Russia is insisting, is aggressively lobbying, and sometimes just simply blackmailing or bribing people in order to reach the
Well, this
solution.
is one of its foreign policy tools. This is one of its strategies to use these radical parties, either on the left or on the right.
Absolutely. So that's why now this challenge for all for Ukrainian delegations and for our allies is high, is more complicated, because every session, from session to session, the pressure from Russian delegation is increasing. Why? Because Russia understands that its dignity or its prestige will be ruined by the fact that it cannot overcome this this decision of PACE. And PACE is the only, let's say, prominent European organization where Russian Federation is represented.
I wanted to ask you this because why is Russia exactly so worried about having voting rights in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe? Why is this particular organization so important?
Yeah, because to a certain extent it is already forgotten because it was important. The organization was important in post-World War II experience, and its idea was to promote democracy and rule of law, as envisaged in the statute of Council of Europe. And what is important is that from the very beginning, Council of Europe was a body closely collaborating with the at that time not European Union, but predecessors of European Union, European Coal and Steel Community. And one of first protocol and one of first protocol added to the treaty establishing European Coal and Steel Community was a protocol on cooperation with Council of Europe, because it was clear for founders of current European Union that any economic integration is impossible without basics on common values and protecting of common values. Since that time, Council of Europe is just moved to the, let's say, not from avant-garde but other to the core and not so well seen elements of broad European architecture. It was used mostly for helping post-Soviet states to transform themselves into democracies. That's why the core meaning and core value of Council of Europe was a little bit forgotten. That's why sometimes MPs from Western European democracies are so, let's say, are so open for all kind of lobbyist initiative from Russia. Because so that is why Russia feels that participation in Council of Europe with full rights also signs that Russia is clearly European state and equal to other European democracies.
Acceptance, in a way.
Yes, absolutely. And for Russia also is conscious that for a lot of states and a lot of parliaments, Council of Europe, European Parliament, Council of Europe is not so important than European Parliament, for example. That's why they believe, so Russia believes that it is easier to
So it's like the first step almost to like gradually get more recognition.
Yes, absolutely. And but at the same time, this is the danger, and the danger for Europe in reality, because Europe now is living through a lot of discussion about rule of law and democracy. And we are not talking only about countries in transformation, so states in transformation like Ukraine, for example. That's why for Ukraine Council of Europe is important. But also the discussion about democracy and rule of law which happens in the European Union with Poland and Hungary being members of the European Union. There are some discussion about the quality of rule of law there, the quality of democracy in all societies with anti-establishment parties and so on.
You just have to look to Brexit.
Brexit as well.
Just one example.
Yes, so that's why the discussion about the quality of democracy, the quality of rule of law is coming back to Europe in general. And that's why the meaning of Council of Europe and Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe is growing, is important. That's why this attempt of Russia just to protect its own prestige, its own place in geopolitics, it may be ruining for Europe in general. And the key task of Ukrainian delegation here is not only to protect our interests, because of course we are advocate of, let's say, limiting rights of Russian delegation, but our task is to make it clear for everyone that the sequence of this decision will be more ruining than any tactic benefits,
like
which
a
can
warning
be
for the future, almost. And I think it's interesting. There's kind of a conflict here, because I think by June 2019, so not long away, Russia wouldn't have paid its contribution for about 2 years. But at the same time, you have the chief of the Council of Europe saying, well, we want to get Russia back in to the table to talk, to negotiate. So do you think that the PACE finds itself in a very difficult situation, because they have to balance their own rules with sort of bending the rules in a way?
I think that the Council of Europe is facing the problem of, let's say, the problem of awakening, because as we discussed, that's Council of Europe, the Council of Europe modified itself in different organization than it was decades ago.
Yeah.
And now the situation with Russian Federation and this, let's say, it's violating the statute of Council of Europe, actually force Council of Europe to make a strong decision, either to exempt Russia from Council of Europe totally, or to capitulate against Russia. And that's why the Council of Europe finds itself in less comfortable situation.
How do they make this decision? I mean, do they base it purely on, say, financial?
Yeah, absolutely. But we all know that finances here is used by Russia as a tool for blackmailing, first of all. But at the same time, this is absolutely, so it's not only blackmailing in terms of how many millions will be lost by Council of Europe budget, but here this is a clear sign that Russian Federation says why we should pay if we are not respected here.
Yeah.
So they by this they say that we will not be part of Council of Europe if you will not just forgive us or will not treat us.
Just forget about everything that's happened.
Yeah. So finances here are used as a tool. It's not. This question is not about finances. This question is about what we respect. Either we are geopolitical body, and what is interesting is that geopolitics of democracy and geopolitics of human rights is resolved in another organization specifically created for this. This is OSCE, which was created as a result of Helsinki Act, which was a, let's say, geopolitical tool about peace and in Europe, in broader Europe, that like some kind of understanding between West world and Soviet Union. That's why OSCE exists, where we can geopolitically discuss democracy and human rights. Council of Europe is more value-oriented organization, where in Article 2 of its statute is clearly mentioned that rule of law and democracy are values to be protected by the organization. The organization was created to protect values. That's why, and what Russia is trying to do is to transform this value-based organization into geography-based or even geopolitics-based organization, which will be ruining for organization.
And I have one final question for you. How important do you think the Ukrainian delegation is in resisting these Russian efforts to try and influence other delegations in pace? I mean, how would you evaluate them?
First of all, I might say that the question is not a purely Ukrainian one. It's not about It's not about protecting Ukrainian interest and to respect and treat Ukraine with proper respect, because Ukraine is suffering from aggression from Russian Federation. But this is more and more pan-European and a regional question, whether we are following our values or not, whether we are going to ruin the basics of European peaceful and quite wealth life. Or we are going just, or we will please Russian Federation. At these circumstances, Ukrainian delegation is extremely efficient, because Ukrainian delegation, first of all, shares the same view in all political spectrum represented in Ukrainian parliament. All MPs, which represent different fractions, different parties in Ukrainian parliament, they stand by themselves together as a team in Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe. That's why they're extremely efficient, and not only efficient in delivering their message, but also in building big coalitions with other MPs from other nations. Whether they will be successful or not, we will see only when the voting the results of voting will appear on the screen.
And we'll have to wait for those. Mr. Kachka, thank you very much for coming in today. It was a pleasure. Thank you. That was Taras Kachka, an advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Thanks for watching UATV, and stay tuned for more.